Good morning, everybody, and this is our cataloging committee meeting for October. And Heather will be taking the minutes for today's meeting, but she is not going to be here. So for her benefit, I'll go ahead and read who all we have in attendance. It looks like we have Beth, we have myself, we have Dia, and we have Lisa Honor, and we have Marcia, and we have Valerie also. Did I get that right? I didn't miss anybody, did I? I don't think so, and we may have some folks join us as we go along today, I hope. But in the meantime, did everybody get the link to the August minutes in the email I sent out last week? And did anybody have any concerns or questions about the minutes from last time? I was putting together the agenda and I was trying to make sure I didn't repeat anything from our August meeting. I actually have them right here. Oh, look, here's my youngest son just walked into my office. Hello, hi, and he brought me a treat. Okay, great. Thank you very much, but I'm going to continue on with my meeting if that's okay. The joys of being a father, everybody. Here are the minutes for your benefit. If anybody needs to review, didn't get a chance to look at it. Let's see. Series report form, that's right. Library of things. Hopefully everybody in this group here at least has some familiarity with the web client. If you have not started looking at the web client, for shame, no. If you need any help getting started with a web client, I've got some resources we'll talk about in a minute. What else? Oh, that's right. We talked about 534. What do we got? Oh, got some announcements down here. Anybody have anything to point out? Question? Dia says no questions, concerns. Lisa says go, good daddy. Well, thank you. You never know around here who's going to walk into your office. Your 2-year-old son. And it looks like we have some other folks joining the meeting, which is good. John George is here. And then Anne is here also. Welcome, everybody. So I've been talking.
John, I thought the minutes looked great.
Oh.
So I move we approve the minutes.
Okay. Beth moves to approve. Do we have a second?
This is Anne. I'll second.
Anne seconds. Great. And Dia does too. Is there any discussion, or shall we adopt the minutes as presented? Hearing no objectors, the minutes are passed, and I'll put those away. Okay. Just really quickly, Beth has put together some printing templates for the web client, which are fantastic because, as you all recall, one of the troubles that we were having with the new web client is the current stock templates in there weren't exactly up to snuff. So Beth created some new ones. Now this does not require anything on our part, right, Beth? It's in there by default, if I recall.
No. I sent the template file as an attachment out on the listserv, so they have to import those templates and save them locally. Okay. One of the things, John, that I realized the other day is although I sent those out on the listserv, I probably should put them up on the SageLib website so they're available for folks to grab.
Yes, that would be very helpful. We've imported them all here and they look great. So I'm sure folks will need to do a little bit of further customization for your specific library, but what Beth put together is much better than what was there for stock. So thank you, Beth. And just watch the website, and you may want to send an email out to the Sage Catalyst when that's up and available.
Okay.
How many of you catalog manga? Any of you perchance out there? Any manga catalogers out there? If there aren't any, I'll just briefly go through this. Dia says a bit. Okay. For those of you unaware of what manga is it's not exactly comic books. They are, it is comic art, but it is not the same form as what we would call comic books here in the States. And they, of course, read the opposite direction, right to left, not left to right. And so the frustrating thing for us is that Library of Congress has not recognized manga as given it its own John Reform heading. So we have been trying to figure out what in the world we want to do with it, because it is not the same thing, and there are sizable manga collections here in our Sage collections, but there's no authorized heading for it. Well, that turns out not to be true, because in the Art and Architecture Thesaurus, manga is an approved legitimate heading. And then I'll bring up the page here. I'll be honest, I don't use the Art and Architecture Thesaurus a lot, because most of my John Reform items I can find in Library of Congress, John Reform Thesaurus, but it is developed by the Getty Institute, and as you might figure out, it is for graphic materials, and it is a widely used authoritative source for headings. So what I propose to the Mentors Committee, and what I would like to recommend to all of you, is to start using this heading right here for your manga items, or if somebody else at your library does the manga cataloging, and they aren't here, you might pass along this tidbit to them. Manga with comic books in parentheses is the authoritative Art and Architecture Thesaurus heading. And so what would this look like? This would look like, if I had my stuff together, we would do, okay, what's going on here? Can I guess I can't. Okay, I'll just do it in the same line. So we'd have our 655 heading here, and then we would have no first indicator. Actually, it's that one, isn't it? Or is it this one? I think it might be that one. Second indicator 7, and then we would have subfield A, and then that would be our manga comic books. Now, I'm not all that familiar with Art and Architecture Thesaurus. Normally I capitalize, like Library of Congress. I'm just going with what I see here, in that it's not capitalized. Can anybody enlighten me? Otherwise, I'm just going to leave it like this, because this is what I see here. I don't think they give me a mark authority view. And then I would have my source here. AAT is the code, the source code for Art and Architecture Thesaurus. Now, some of you may have noticed that it is a faceted thesaurus, and that doesn't, I'm not going to go into all the specifics of what that means, but I will bring this up to show you. If you were to look up something from the Art and Architecture Thesaurus, say in OCLC here, like you can see this right here. Here is a faceted version of an Art and Architecture Thesaurus. You see how it has lots of other stuff in here. That is also acceptable. However, we're not going to worry about that right now because in our system, correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, but this is going to be indexed just fine as the heading.
Yeah, it will be, yes.
Great. Okay, good. If you would have answered no to that question, I would have panicked, but I don't have to panic now. So, does everybody see how I constructed this genre form heading for manga? And go ahead and start using that, or encourage your manga cataloger to go ahead and start using that.
And John,
yes,
that screen that you just showed with the faceted, the A was lowercase. Was that Library of Congress that you were just looking at? Or the mark, OCLC, okay.
Right here, so, this is OCLC, yeah.
So you see the subfield A at the end?
Yes.
It is lowercase, so I'm guessing you are correct that it probably just is lowercase.
I'm not sure why that is, but
I don't either.
We often as catalogers just need to know something, and we don't necessarily need to understand it, which is a great source of frustration for me. I don't know about you.
It is for a lot of the catalogers in the system.
Why is it there's a period at the end of 300 when there's a 490 field? I suspect it has something to do with the old catalog cards, but
it did.
I don't understand why I have to do that now.
It had to do with the way it did a line spacing.
Yes, and it's
just carried over.
Right, carryover. It's kind of like the cider house rules, right? Why is this here? Well, because it was there. That's why it's there. Okay, so does anybody else have any questions on that at all? 6:55. We'll talk a little later. Yes, Beth.
What are we going to do about the existing manga in the system? Do you want me to pull a list and get this genre heading in, or what are your thoughts?
I would appreciate it, because the fact that we have an authoritative heading here from an authoritative thesaurus means that we don't have to apply a local heading for manga. So, and I'm happy to do work on this if needed, but I would like to see all our local versions of manga that we have currently streamlined into this one authoritative heading. So if we could have a list of all of those and just get an idea of how many we have, hopefully there aren't too many to convert.
Okay, so do you have a sense for what was used in the record that would allow me to identify them?
I've got a feeling that there's probably second indicator 4 genre form field, 655 second indicator 4. There also might be just second indicator 0 that people have put in as authorized Library of Congress headings. And there may be a second indicator, subfield 2 local. I'm just guessing here of things where places you might find it.
And another possible search would be the right to left in the 5XX fields.
Reads right to left. Yeah, as a general note. How about comic books subfield Z? Either I'm not sure what Japanese translations, or you know what I'm talking about, where they would have subfield A comic books, and then they would have subfield Z Japan.
Okay, I'll dig around and see what I can find.
That may be there too, and we can evaluate once we kind of get an idea. Hopefully there, like I said, there aren't too many of these.
Okay.
I'm just looking at Lisa's in the chat. Comics Graphic Works, yeah, that's great. That's just for that's a much broader heading than manga, and as is graphic novels, subfield 2 LCGFT graphic novels. Those are also broader terms.
Right. I was just looking for stuff for Beth to be able to search to find them. Yeah.
Right. Well, she would, with those, she would be
That's a
casting
lot.
a wider net. Yeah.
Right. No, I feel sorry for you on that one. There's a lot out there, but not the mangas. There's a lot of the comics and the graphic novels labeled correctly, but we use that for the manga as well. So I don't know how she's going to separate the manga unless they're actually tagged with the 500 reads back to forward. Obviously, some of the authors and some of the publishers, but unless it actually says reads backward to forward, what else would be your clue? Sorry, might be a stupid question.
Well, manga is specific to Japan. There are
on top of
right. There are other manga type works from other countries, Korea, for example, but they are identified differently. They have their own term for what their manga is. It's not Japanese, but
okay.
We're just going to let Beth work her magic, and we'll see what she comes up with. And if we have some more ideas to throw her way, maybe we'll do that. Okay, any other questions, or shall we move on to LCSHES? For those of you, I know some of you are already using this, which is great. For those of you who have never seen this or don't know what this is, let me close my art and architecture window. For those of you who do Spanish cataloging, this could be a very helpful resource for you. It requires an account. It is free. It does not cost anything. Let me log in here. Now, it allows you to search through various Spanish controlled vocabularies, the Sora, I should say, by searching in English, which is very helpful. And I'm just going to use the example that's given right here for psychology. Now notice first that you can search just regular LCSH in English down here. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to enter my English term. And I check both these boxes because I like to see the cross-references. And I'm going to use the English to Spanish, English to Espanol search. And this is what it gives me. Okay, so here's my English term, and you can see the bold ones are authorized LCSH headings, and I can see the mark authority here. Then the non-bold are the cross-references. Here is the Spanish equivalent here. And then here is the thesaurus that it is giving me. And here's your legend key down here as to what the thesaurus is. Now you'll see down here, this is a strong case right here because this is authorized in all 4 of these Spanish thesauri, adjustment psychology. They came up for 472 terms that contain the word psychology here. And let me just give you a quick view of, this is the BIDEX. Have you seen, those of you who do Spanish cataloging, you've probably seen BIDEX used as the source code, subfield 2 BIDEX?
Yeah, I've seen that.
So here is the authority here. Here's the 150. That's the authorized BIDEX heading for psychology adjustment heading. I'm a nonfiction cataloger, so I see nonfiction type headings all the time. I was going to try and do one more fiction for you fiction catalogers. How many of you see this one in juvenile fiction? Imaginary Wars and Battles. Here's the BIDEX. It's in BIDEX. It's also in the San Francisco Public Library. And here is the authorized Spanish term for that. Notice this is different than just taking an authorized term in LCSH and then translating it into Spanish, because every language, of course, has its own various idioms, right? That's why they have controlled vocabularies for Spanish language headings. And so, I don't know, maybe some of you have been doing that. I would recommend checking out this resource to try and get more authoritative Spanish headings for your bib records. And there is a Library of Congress website for what the codes are for these respective. Let me see if I can find it for you. If I can't find it real quick, I'm not going to waste your time looking for it. It's fairly simple to find if you do a search for Library of Congress, the source codes. Like BIDEX, I know is BIDEX, BIDEX. Lisa and I had a fun time tracking this one down last week when we were talking about this, the official, or the National Library of Spain is what that translates to, NE. So, anyway, I would encourage you just to check out that resource, even if you don't do a lot of Spanish cataloging. Create yourself an account in case you ever need to use it. Anybody have any questions, concerns, additions, revelations, visions on that one? Nope. Not so far. Okay. All right, let's put that away. And I wanted to point out some web client resources for you in case you haven't seen these yet, or in case you haven't done a lot of web client cataloging. We're getting closer, so I would encourage you to take advantage of these resources if you haven't. Beth has on her blog page here instructions, very good instructions, how to get set up on the web client if you haven't yet. Setting up and logging into the Evergreen web client. It is available from the Sage website right here. And then if you haven't been able to view these sessions that she put together, they are excellent, and they are on the Sage YouTube channel. I also have links here. If anybody would like this sent out, I mean, I know I sent out a previous one. I've updated this since then. If anybody would like this sent out to them after the meeting's over, just let me know, and I can send you this Word document that has all of these links in here. The cataloging sessions and then the hour question and answer are very helpful, just getting around and doing some more advanced things in the web client. So with that, I'll open the floor up to anybody. Are there any specific web client issues or questions that folks have? Any bugs they've encountered that they would like to point out to the group today? There are quite a few that we've discovered in the cataloging sessions, but the floor is yours if anybody would like to point anything out. Going once. Going twice. And Beth, it looks like the web client is working flawlessly for our group here today. Or they're just a little shy. But I will go ahead and move on and open the floor for folks if there are any. I always want to leave some time for general cataloging questions, issues. If anybody would like to poll their fellow catalogers, now's your opportunity for any kind of general cataloging question you may have. Going once. Going twice. And no takers this time around. But at our next meeting, if you want to bring up something, feel free to do it. Or, if any time throughout the meeting, you can always raise an objection or raise a question if you remember something. I'll go ahead and move on to just a couple general reminders for folks. And this is just as much a reminder for me as I'm doing my cataloging as it is for anybody else. So I've got two different categories here, and as the mentors were looking over bib records this past month, I kind of compiled some issues here that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention when you're importing records, and just to make sure that everybody's aware. Go ahead, Beth.
John, I'm confused by the GMD 264.
Yes. It's not in 264, is it? I meant to type 245.
No,
I typed
245. So I just wanted to make sure whether that was a typo or there's something I really don't know.
That was my mind being absent, is what it was. We would have 245, and then we would have a number either 0 or 1 there. And then we would have possibly numbers there, either 0 or 4 or 2 for non-filing characters, and then subfield H. Well, let's go ahead and talk about that since Beth brought it up. My goodness. Yeah, not 264, 245 title statement. Now, just so you're aware, the GMD, if you weren't, is deprecated in RDA. It has been since 2016, I believe, and the information that's in the GMD has been replaced with other items that you will see in the bib record, like the 33X fields, like some fixed fields. You may have seen some audio-video equipment have some additional 300 fields, like in the 340s. Now, that being said, when Sage officially adopts RDA exclusively, which will be sometime in the future, we'll strip the GMDs out, but we have not done that yet. So current Sage policy is to include the GMD, and the reason why I'm including it here is because you are going to see lots of records when you import records that do not have the GMD, which is why I'm including it here. If you don't have an updated GMD list, which I'm not sure, does it say? It doesn't give me a date as to when this list was created here, but it is available, of course, on the Sage website. I've got it as a link here, and these are the GMD terms that we're using in Sage. So we want to encourage you, if you have been slacking while importing records with the GMD, it is current Sage policy to include the GMD in subfield H.
John, I might also add that they're going to see some flavors of GMDs in import records too, because some folks have gotten creative and they'll have video coding with DVD after it. And I always remove the DVD part because that's not standard GMD. And you'll see things like I've seen large print in brackets rather than the text large print. So, so some folks in their own system have made some choices that don't match the standards. So I just want people to aware when they're importing records that they might have to change it to a standard heading.
Yeah, if you've been using something different for video recording or sound recording, sometimes I'll see MP3 in the GMD, which is creative, but MP3 information is contained elsewhere in the record, and it's on the cheat sheet if you haven't gone and looked at the cheat sheet. It is, however, a 999 term, which is what we're going to talk about next. And especially for these two at the bottom here, which are, as you see, Sage specific, when you're importing records, you're probably not going to see these in this particular form, so you will need to make some changes.
So is text large print Sage specific? I guess I thought that was a standard.
It is an acceptable according to the AACR2 manual. We have chosen to utilize it. Text with some other iterations is also acceptable, but this is one specifically we chose to use for making it easier for the patrons.
Okay.
And also remember with that there are other changes that need to be made that may be in there already when you import a record, or they may not be, that designate large print. There are a couple of other fields. There's 999. There's fixed field also. So just make sure. I just don't want folks to stick the GMD in there thinking that that's all they have to do to make an acceptable large print record. And that is not the case. So any questions on GMD? If not, I'll go ahead and put that away. 999 form is right here. Now, I think this is the one I got from the website. So if I'm not mistaken, we have made an addition or two to this list, have we not? Isn't Realia/object now a 999 term? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it is. Looks like I need to update the web.
Realia object, like that, right? I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head currently that we've added since then. I'm not sure. We'll review that, but probably more than anything we discovered last month is folks not adding 999 terms to their imported records, and I don't think that's a chronic problem with those in attendance today, but it always is a good reminder for everybody. Just make sure that you are adding your 999 with the correct standard term. And I bring it up today, and I bring it in this list because, like I say, these are items you are going to want to add all the time. 999 especially, not so much the other two, but since it is a Sage specific thing. I have noticed from Seattle, for those of you who import records from Seattle, Seattle has their own 999 field. So with them, you just need to edit the subfields. They already have the field in there.
Actually, we've decided it's better if we remove their 999 field and add our own.
Does it make
instead of attaching to? Just because it makes it cleaner in being able to see.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, I agree with you. When I edit their 999, I get rid of all their subfields.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Get rid of all their subfields, replace it with our Sage specific subfields. No, that's right. But the field itself is in there. Not all libraries utilize it. Seattle is one that happens to have it in there. But yeah, make sure all of Seattle's information gets stripped out of there.
One other thing we might mention, just as a reminder, just so that it's in the recording, that this is not case sensitive, so you will see it sometimes entered all uppercase or all lowercase. That does not matter. It indexes it regardless, but don't add any punctuation because that will create a separate field, if you will, from, like say you add a period at the end of book, that will create an extra locator or an extra indexed piece. Punctuation is important not to add.
Yes. Have you all seen that when you're doing material-specific searches and you'll search for something and you'll get 17 results under book, and then you'll get one result under book period because they're indexed differently? That is a good point. Case does not matter. Punctuation does, so please do not put any punctuation other than, well, let's see. No, these don't have, is there anything that they don't have parentheses?
Just a dash or a slash
Just the
considering.
slash here, yeah.
And then in Blu-ray, a dash.
Oh, Blu-ray has it too. Yes, right there. But nothing, no final punctuation, please. All right, so 999 GMD 655s. We talked a little bit about genre form headings up here. The reason I include it in this list, once again, these are probably less common than ones you're going to find up here, but I still find when I import records that a lot of them could use 655 genre form headings and don't have them. Now, I catalog mostly nonfiction, so the ones I find are things like biographies, autobiographies, case studies, personal narratives, those type of genre form headings. When you catalog other types of materials, you'll probably find a lot of different types. And if you're not familiar with, here, let me open up my link here. This is where I do my genre form searching. Of course, you can search in the old Library of Congress Authorities site that has all of the headings in there, but this is kind of handy because it searches genre form specifically. So if I just search biographies, for example, okay, I have my authorized genre form heading term here, as well as the vocabulary that it comes from, which is Library of Congress genre form thesaurus. For biographies, biographical comics, lots of different ones. Now there is, for those of you who like lists instead of searching, there is a PDF form, 95, 96 pages of Library of Congress genre forms list. I think here, right here, genre form terms. If you would prefer to browse for one, you can look this way. It also has, this document has the cross references in it, which is handy. That is available, and like I said, there it is, 95 pages. It's also a cure for insomnia, I've found. If you have trouble falling asleep at night, that is an excellent resource for that. So I'd encourage you, would anybody like to suggest, since I'm not really a fiction aficionado, common genre form headings that they find when they're cataloging fiction that maybe you find you have to add because they're not in records that you import? I'll open up the floor to any that people find commonly that you'd like to suggest.
I'm thinking one that might be somewhat common would be historical fiction.
Historical fiction, let's see.
Not sure the exact correct term at the moment, but
yeah, I think that's right. Go back and search historical fiction. Historical fiction, historical comics. Graphic novels is one that Lisa brought up earlier. Graphic novels, which we also use for nonfiction, believe it or not, even though the term is graphic novels. There are nonfiction biographical, for example, comics that are that receive the graphic novels genre form heading. The broader term is comics graphic, parentheses, graphic works. I think. Methinks comics graphic works is a much broader heading, covers all of these different types of materials. Let's see. How about picture books? Is it for children? I think it might just be picture books. Let's see. There we go. Picture books. One that we might commonly use as a genre. I guess it's a form heading, isn't it? Form heading for juvenile fiction. So I'd like to encourage you all to please, if you see materials that need genre or form headings, 655 headings that don't have them when you're importing records, please feel free to add them and make sure and source them also. They would look like this up here, 655 second indicator 7, and then you'd have your term here and then your source here, and the source that I'm looking at here is the code is LCGFT, which you probably see quite a bit. LCGFT.
And I might mention too, if you're uncomfortable with doing this and you think there's one that should be added, feel free to send them to one of the mentors, the particular bib and what you think.
Yes, if you're thinking there should be one, but you have any questions about whether the term is correct or whether the source code is correct, check with your mentor and they'll be happy to look it up for you and teach you how to look it up to make sure that we get them right, because the purpose of a controlled vocabulary is to bring things together, right? So
I have a question.
A question.
When we're in, yes, and it's on genres. When we bring them in their 4s, like historical fiction, I see that one all the time as a 4. I never see it as a 0. Second indicator, I'm sorry. I see it as a 4. Knowing what we know now, is it going to be a good practice to change those to 7s and trace them? Authorize them?
Yes, please. If we can change local headings, that some other library has them as a local heading, and we have them in an authoritative thesaurus like LCGFT, let's do that. Change it from a local heading and source it according to an authority. I kind of am a stickler about this, more so than other folks are. I guess I highly admit that, but yes, change it to second indicator 7 and source it to an authoritative source rather than just make a local heading, because that's how we end up with 6 different terms for the same thing, right? Which we want to eliminate. Okay, excellent question. Anybody else have any more questions on any of these common additions while you're importing? And let me be super clear about one thing. I wrote the term import on purpose. Okay, because especially when we get to subtracting stuff, we're talking about stuff we're bringing in from other libraries through the Z39 interface, because when we start talking about subtracting some of this stuff, if it's already in our SAGE catalog, some of our other SAGE libraries do make use of, like for example, this local heading right here, which is fine. It's the local headings from outside of the SAGE Consortium libraries that we want to eliminate because they have nothing to do with us. Does that make sense?
It does. The 049 might get added to Sage records by somebody who's bringing in a record from OCLC, and they've enabled that feature. So, but that would be.
And I would suggest please don't remove them if they're local to us.
Yes, please. If another library, and I do see it quite a bit. So if you are attaching something onto an existing bib record and you see this 049 local headings term, that is different than when you are importing. When we import them, we want to get rid of them, but when they are there currently in an existing record, please leave them there. We don't want to eliminate a Sage Libraries 049 field.
And again, clarification there that we're talking importing from Z39.50, because if you are importing a CAT Express record, that will come with your CAT Express record, and that tells you that you do have a holding in OCLC. And by the licensing agreement with CAT Express, we are supposed to remove those from OCLC holdings when we remove it from our system.
All right, so the other ones are pretty self-explanatory, I think. Especially this projected publishing date. Have you seen that, 263? You're holding the book in your hand. I think it's safe to get rid of the projected publishing date when you import. As a matter of fact, probably when you see that at all.
That's generally in a CIP record, and sometimes gets missed being stripped.
So that's not helpful to us. So we want to take that out when we see it, because it just clutters up the record. Sometimes, and I added this one in here because I want to talk about it. Sometimes I do see other classification numbers from other libraries when I'm importing, and okay, it might be informational, but I don't necessarily think it belongs in a Sage record. The 082, which we have a procedure for adding 082, which is the Dewey Decimal Number, either with a second indicator 0, or actually it's first indicator 0, isn't it, from the Library of Congress record, or if it has, no, it is second indicator 4, then it is from the OCLC classify site for the Dewey Decimal Number. But with local Dewey numbers, how do we feel, folks, asking the powers that be, about local classification numbers 092 fields in existing Sage bib records? Are we ambivalent?
I don't have an issue with removing them because that is a local decision. I haven't, for the most part, been removing them, but I don't object to it.
How do others feel?
I know we've had conversation in the past about this, I think, at the mentor level, but I don't remember what we ever came to. I think we decided that they weren't necessary to keep in, but they weren't really harming anything to leave either. So I think we didn't push the issue at that point.
Well, in that case, I'll speak for myself. I don't see the point in keeping them when we can have an 082 Dewey Decimal Number that is either in a Library of Congress catalog record or that is taken from the OCLC classify. I mean, it's great if you construct your own call numbers or classification, nonfiction classification numbers. We're I assume going to see that in your call number in the catalog anyway. That seems to me to be the acceptable place for that, not in the 092 local classification field.
And I believe that is exactly what kind of a lot of the discussion was referencing.
Okay, so just I'll just limit the scope of this discussion to when you're importing records right now, as opposed to when you find an existing Sage Bib record that has this in it. I would encourage you to take local classification numbers from libraries outside of Sage, which is what you're going to get when you import it through Z39. Take those out because those correspond to Seattle or Kansas City or Toronto or wherever. And while they may be accurate, I think it's going to be much more helpful to have authoritative classification numbers in the 082 field. And so I'd encourage you to take those out when you import. Is that too far? Is that a bridge too far for anybody for me to suggest that when you're importing records?
I think it's fine. I'll start doing it.
Okay. I love taking stuff out that doesn't need to be there, at least in my opinion. If you all didn't notice, but okay. And then local data 9XX. When you import a record from Z39, it's going to add the 901 field automatically. And then I'm not sure what else gets stripped out automatically, Beth, but sometimes I do see excess local data carried over from Z39 import.
I think we currently have 926 and 955 because those are common ones that come with LC records.
Mm-hmm.
I think those might be the only ones we have chosen to have stripped. Does that sound about right, Beth?
Yeah, I think that there's one or two more. I can look it up while we're online here. Another thing that I thought off the top of my head that's not on this list is the 599 that I see on some import records.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're choosing to use that field for things like temp record when we're creating from scratch. But when we're importing, those 599s don't make any sense to our system, so we could remove those as well.
Are they stripped, or do we need to
No,
take
they
them
are
out?
not stripped. We
Okay.
have to take them out. The reason we don't strip it is because when we tried that, it causes it not to stay in our system either.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so
then that negated our temp bib notation.
Okay, so let's put that one on the list also to take out upon import, because I have seen that one, yes. Anybody have any questions?
And actually, it could be any 59X field, because I have also seen them as a 591. I removed one of those this morning, and I've also seen 594s and 595s.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. All right. So any more questions on any of these subtractions or additions? And remember, I say common. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's not so much, but these are the ones we see most often. Anybody have any further questions on that? Okay, well, looks like we're going to get out just about on time. The last thing I have on my agenda here is when to insert your code in the 040 field. When you are importing a record, when should we do subfield D and then whatever your code is? So let's just ask, do we do it when we insert a 999? Yes,
no.
No, we do not. When you insert your 999, that is not cause to add an entry to 040. How about when you insert a GMD?
Yes.
Yes, that is a different case than 999, right? That's a much more substantial change to the bib record. That does deserve a subfield D and your code in 040. How about making genre form additions?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. That also is a substantial change to the record. So,
Adding a
okay.
series.
Yeah, how about adding series information, 490 or 8XX information?
Also, yes. And also when you correct spelling errors, etc.
Right, I did one of those this morning, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
So when you, spelling errors. Now, sometimes when the material itself is published with a misspelling on it, RDA specifies that you keep that information and note it, that it was published that way. So just make sure when you're making edits that you are supposed to be making that edit, that if it is a legitimate clerical error and not because of something actually on the resource.
Generally, the misspells that I find correction needing are in the 520s.
Yes.
That's
Spacing
probably the
problems,
biggest numbers.
punctuation problems, misspellings, 520s for sure. Okay, how about these subtractions when we're taking stuff out? Is that a cause to insert your code in the O4 field? Any thoughts?
I would say no. What do the rest of you think?
Generally as well.
What do the rest of you think? Anybody think yes?
I think yes. I think yes, because it is a change that, I mean, not that it's substantial, but at least when you guys are going back and seeing what the stage of the changes were, is it for maybe segregating out in a more simple manner what was done, when it was done? Maybe I'll do whatever you guys tell me to do, but I have been putting, when I take stuff out, like the 263 or the 594, in records I'm editing that I haven't brought in, I say that yes, I was in there and I made changes. That's how I understood it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. I generally say no. I'm trying to think of an instance where I have subtracted something. Generally,
okay, here's my thought. Generally no, because these are local to another system. However, the 263, I could see where that would be a case, because generally a 263 is being removed because the CIP is being upgraded.
Yeah, and you're doing other changes.
And you're doing other changes. Well. However, sometimes that one does get left. So that one's kind of an iffy one in my mind, but those 5, 9, or any of the others that have the 9s in them that are in that list, generally you're removing some other system's local information.
Well, and let me add this too. When you delete that 263, generally, isn't there a fixed field?
Yes.
That is going to be changed as well, right?
Encoding level from 8 to, yes.
And so that certainly is cause for
exactly
entering your
it's part of the CIP that usually gets missed too.
Right. So I think that's, do we pretty much have consensus? Lisa, you don't feel too bad, do you? I hope not. I hope I didn't scare you off.
So no, it takes a minute to coordinate the microphone. Oh, sorry. No, that made perfect sense. You know, when, like you said, when you're changing the 263, there's other changes that go with it. So that you want to make sure that people know what the train of corrections was. But yeah, the local notes, they're not affecting us anyway, so get them out of there. What about like, and I know this is nitpicky, but the CM on the 300 and the period, when you add the well, never mind, because when you add the 490, automatically you want your initials in there. Got it. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
So I have a list of the fields that are currently being removed on import. 955 925, 906, 907, 596, 029, 963, 905. My thought is that maybe we want to get rid of, in addition to these, the 938 and the 945. Are there any others that folks have seen?
Not that I can see from this. I can't think of anything that I see that is not included in what's been mentioned so far.
Beth?
You said you had seen some 594s?
Yes, and 591s.
Okay.
I was just going to say we might as well do those other 599 other than 599.
Oh, you're saying just leave 599 out of the list, but go ahead and eliminate 591
I don't see why not, because those usually are some sort of a local.
Okay.
And most of the time it's just kind of a funny little short thing like a TP or a E something, or I mean it makes maybe sense in exactly in their system, but obviously not in ours.
Okay.
And it could look really funny to patrons if they happen to look at and see and go, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So 59, just 59X then. We're going to just take out everything
with
there.
With the exception of the 599.
Yeah.
Oh, with the exception of 599. Okay, that means I need to get creative. 598. All right, automatically. Okay, I'll clean this up and I'll have Heather look over the recording and put together some minutes for our meeting today. It's just about, oh, John George says, what about 946 when 999 is present and 905? That's right, admin. Don't you have a 905 as an admin tag, right?
That gets added when I do a batch update on records. So that's not going to affect import. So these would be just
on
fields that we're seeing on Z39.50 import. So I could add it. If we're seeing those come in, yeah.
Okay. All right, folks. Well, that's all I have on my agenda for today. Does anybody have anything else pressing they'd like to bring up before somebody moves to adjourn? All right. Does anybody move to adjourn?
I do.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Great meeting.
Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll see you in 2 months, and I'll get this recording and these minutes up online should you need to reference them. And thanks, everybody, for all you do. I will see you next time.
Thanks a lot, John.
Mm-hmm.